The silent provocation. The cargo vessel Aurora drifted through the outer reaches of the Orion Arm, its hull painted with the blue and green of Earth. Inside, 32 humans worked with quiet efficiency, cataloging mineral samples from the Haro asteroid belt they had just surveyed. They were scientists, engineers, and explorers. They were not soldiers. They had no reason to be. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, watching the stars wheel slowly past. She had been running these survey missions for 15 years, and each one still filled her with wonder. The universe was vast, beautiful, and mostly empty. Humanity had encountered other species before, always peacefully. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, shared knowledge. That was the human way. Violence belonged to Earth's distant past. A lesson learned through centuries of war that nearly destroyed their homeworld. Commander, we're picking up multiple contacts on long-range sensors, Communications Officer David Park announced. His voice carried curiosity, not concern. Ships meant potential friends, perhaps traders or fellow explorers. Sarah moved to the command station. The display showed 12 vessels approaching in perfect formation. Their design was unfamiliar, angular and aggressive where most spacefaring vessels favored efficiency. The ships bristled with what could only be weapons arrays. Sarah felt the first flutter of unease. "Open standard greeting channels," she ordered. "All frequencies. Let them know we're peaceful explorers." The message went out in mathematical sequences, musical tones, and a dozen known alien languages. It was humanity's universal greeting, refined over decades of peaceful contact. The response came swiftly. A single transmission in perfect English, though no human had taught them the language. "Human, vessel Aurora, you trespass in space claimed by the Halor Empire. Your presence is an insult. Your existence is an error. Prepare for correction." Sarah's blood ran cold. She had studied xenopsychology, understood that some species might be territorial, but this was different. This was pure hostility without provocation. Around her, the crew had gone silent, faces pale with disbelief. "This is Commander Chen of the Aurora. We are a peaceful scientific vessel. We were not aware of any territorial claims in this sector. We will leave immediately and report your boundaries to Earth to prevent future misunderstandings." The Halor response was not words but action. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the Aurora's unshielded hull. The ship had basic deflector, screens for micrometeorites, nothing more. It was never meant for combat. Alarms screamed as atmosphere vented into space. Sarah grabbed the emergency broadcast transmitter. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Aurora. We are under unprovoked attack by ships, identifying as Halor Empire. Coordinates follow. We are unarmed. Repeat, we are unarmed and under attack." The second volley tore through the engine compartment. Engineer Lisa Martinez barely had time to seal the blast doors before the entire section decompressed. Half the crew was already gone. Those remaining gathered on the bridge, knowing they had minutes at most. "Why?" David asked, blood running down his face from a gash. "We did nothing to them." Sarah looked at the approaching ships, saw the deliberate cruelty in their slow advance. They could have destroyed Aurora instantly, but chose to prolong it. "Sometimes there is no why," she said quietly. "Sometimes beings choose violence because they can." She activated the ship's black box, ensuring everything was recorded. The final testimony of the Aurora would survive even if they did not. The third volley split the ship in half. In the cold vacuum of space, 32 human lives ended. Their only crime was curiosity. Their only weapon was wonder. The Halor ships departed, leaving the wreckage to drift. They sent a message to their empire. The humans were weak, as suspected. One ship destroyed without a single return shot fired. The galaxy would learn to fear the Halor Empire. 3 days later, a human rescue vessel found the Aurora's remains. The black box was recovered, its contents transmitted to Earth. In the halls of the United Nations Space Council, leaders watched the recording in silence. They saw Sarah Chen's final moments, heard her calm voice ensuring the truth would survive. President Maria Rodriguez stood before the assembly. Her voice was steady, controlled, but those who knew her recognized the steel beneath. We sent them scientists. They sent back corpses. We offered peace. They chose war. The question now is not if we respond, but how. General James Thompson, a man who had hoped never to use his training again, spoke carefully. The Halar Empire has 1,200 ships according to intelligence. We have 40. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Then we don't confront them directly. Admiral Zhang Wei interjected. Humans didn't survive on Earth by being the strongest. We survived by being the smartest. The Halar want war? We'll give them something they've never seen before. The vote was unanimous. Earth's response would not be emotional or rushed. It would be calculated, precise, and devastating. Not because humans loved war, but because they understood that some threats could only be answered one way. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in bunkers that hadn't been opened in 50 years, old protocols were activated. Ships designed for science were retrofitted with weapons. Men and women who had chosen peaceful careers found themselves studying tactics and strategy. Earth's greatest minds turned from creation to destruction, not with joy but with grim determination. The Halar Empire had made a fatal error. They assumed human kindness was weakness. They believed that because humans chose peace, they couldn't wage war. They thought that destroying one ship would cow an entire species. They had no idea what they had awakened. In schools across Earth, children learning about the Aurora asked their teachers why the aliens had attacked. The answer was, always the same. Sometimes evil exists. Sometimes good people must stand against it. Sometimes the cost of peace is the willingness to fight for it. The Halar Empire celebrated their easy victory, already planning which human colonies to subjugate first. Their leaders spoke of the wealth they would extract, the slaves they would take. They saw humanity as fruit ready to be plucked. They did not notice the human ships that began appearing at the edges of their space, running silent and dark. They did not detect the probes mapping every supply line, every weakness in their infrastructure. They did not realize that humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of war before choosing peace, and that those lessons had not been forgotten. Commander. Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned warship Vengeance. It had taken 6 months to prepare, 6 months of careful planning and preparation. Around him, volunteers from across Earth worked with quiet efficiency. They were teachers, doctors, engineers, artists. They were also now soldiers because the Halar had left them no choice. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. Operation Consequence is green across the board. Marcus looked at the star map showing Halar space. 1,200 ships, the general had said. The Halar thought that number meant victory. They were about to learn that in war numbers meant nothing compared to intelligence, determination, and the human ability to do the impossible. Send the message, Marcus ordered. Across human space, a single transmission went out. It was not a threat or a declaration of war. It was simpler than that. For the Aurora, the Halar Empire had struck a human ship. Now they would learn what that truly cost. The price of arrogance, the Halar celebrated for weeks. In their crystalline cities, citizens gathered to watch recordings of the Aurora's destruction. Their media praised the swift action against the human infestation. Military commanders received honors for their decisive victory. They had proven, they believed, that the Halar Empire was the galaxy's apex power. Supreme Commander Vakath stood before the Empire's War Council, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of triumph. The humans sent one message after their ship's destruction: nothing since. They cower on their worlds, knowing they cannot match our might. I recommend we begin the harvest. Their colonies will make excellent mining operations. The council chittered. Their agreement. Plans were drawn for the subjugation of humanity. They allocated 50 ships for the entire campaign. After all, if one unarmed vessel represented humanity's exploration efforts, their military couldn't be much better. They were still celebrating when the lights went out. Across the Halar Empire, power stations failed simultaneously. Not destroyed, simply shut down by viruses that had been planted months earlier. The Halor had never considered cyber warfare. Their computer systems, so advanced and interconnected, became their weakness. Within hours, their vast empire was plunged into darkness. In the chaos, they almost missed the small human fleet that appeared near their primary shipyard. 40 ships against 1,200 seemed like madness. The Halor scrambled to respond, but their communications were compromised. Orders came slowly, confused, contradictory. By the time they organized a response, the humans were gone, and their shipyard was a cloud of debris. Supreme Commander Vakath raged at his subordinates. How did 40 primitive ships destroy our primary construction facility? They didn't fight, Supreme Commander, his tactical analyst reported, fear evident in all 4 of his eyes. They planted explosive devices and left. We're still finding them throughout the wreckage. The humans turned our own ships under construction into bombs. The second strike came 3 days later. A Halor supply convoy, carrying food to their core world, simply vanished. No battle, no debris. Investigation revealed that the humans had used some kind of gravitational manipulation to redirect the convoy into a star. The Halor hadn't known such technology existed. Impossible, Vakath insisted. The humans are peaceful scientists. They don't have military technology. His science advisor trembled as she spoke. Supreme Commander, we've analyzed their history. The humans spent 2,000 years perfecting warfare before they chose peace. They split atoms to create weapons. They engineered plagues. They turned their entire planet into a battlefield. Multiple times, their peaceful nature is a choice, not a limitation. Strike after strike followed, each one precisely calculated for maximum impact with minimum human exposure. Supply lines severed, communication relays destroyed, military installations sabotaged. The Halor's numerical advantage meant nothing. When they couldn't coordinate, couldn't supply their ships, couldn't even trust their own systems. The humans never stayed to fight. They struck and vanished using stealth technology the Halor couldn't detect, employing tactics that seemed to predict every Halor response. It was warfare unlike anything the Empire had faced. They had expected battle lines and fleet engagements. Instead, they got ghosts that bled them dry one cut at a time. Marcus Stone watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as another Halor patrol group fell into their trap. Artificial wormholes, a technology humans had developed for peaceful exploration, made excellent weapons when opened inside enemy ships. The patrol vessels imploded, crushed by their own spatial distortion. That's 300 of their ships eliminated without firing a single conventional weapon, his weapons officer reported. The Halor are pulling all their remaining forces back to defend their homeworld. Marcus nodded. Begin Phase 2. The message that reached the Halor homeworld was simple. Every screen, every communication device displayed the same thing. The faces of the Aurora's crew one by one. 32 humans who had died for no reason. Then a single line of text. You killed our peaceful explorers, now face our warriors. The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace near the Halor homeworld was not 40 ships. It was 400. In the months of guerrilla warfare, Earth had not been idle. Every resource had been turned to ship production, every citizen contributing to the effort. The Halor had awakened not just humanity's military, but its united will. Supreme Commander Vakath looked at the approaching fleet and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, not of death, but of understanding. The humans had played them perfectly. Every strike had been designed to force the Halor to consolidate their forces, to bring them together where they could be confronted all at once. Supreme Commander, they're broadcasting something. On the screen appeared a human woman. President Rodriguez stood in Earth's council chambers, behind her representatives of every human nation and colony. Halor Empire, you attacked our peaceful vessel. You killed our people who came in friendship. We have shown you what war with humanity means. Your empire is crippled. Your military is broken. Your choice to embrace violence has cost you everything. But we are not you. We do not glory in destruction. Surrender now and this ends. Continue and we will finish what you started. Vakath's pride warred with reality. Around him, his subordinates waited. The human fleet held position, weapons powered but not firing. They were offering something the Halor had never given. Mercy. What are your terms? Vakath transmitted. Simple, the human president replied. The Halor Empire withdraws all territorial claims beyond your home system. You pay reparations to the families of the Aurora's crew. You sign a treaty preventing any future aggression against peaceful vessels of any species. And you learn what we learned long ago. That strength without wisdom is meaningless. That power without restraint is destruction. That choosing peace is not weakness but the ultimate evolution of a species. The terms were humiliating but not cruel. The humans could have demanded everything, could have destroyed the Halor completely. Instead, they offered a path forward. It was, Vakath realized, what the humans had hoped for from the beginning. Not conquest but coexistence. We accept, he transmitted. The words bitter but necessary. The human fleet powered down their weapons. Ships that had been instruments of precision destruction began transmitting technical data to help the Halor rebuild their infrastructure. Medics offered assistance to wounded. Engineers shared solutions to the viruses still plaguing Halor systems. Marcus Stone watched the Halor struggle to understand. They had expected vengeance and received justice. They had expected hatred and received humanity's most powerful weapon, the ability to forgive, to build rather than destroy, to choose peace even after war. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, the Halor are asking why. Why help them after what they did? Marcus thought of the Aurora's crew, of Sarah Chen's final message ensuring the truth survived. Because that's what makes us human. We fight when we must, but we build when we can. The Halor learned that human kindness isn't weakness. Now they need to learn that human strength isn't cruelty. Across the galaxy, other species took note. The Halor Empire, which had seemed invincible, had been brought to its knees by a species a fraction of their size, not through superior numbers or technology, but through intelligence, unity, and the precise application of force. The humans had won not just a war, but something greater. Respect. The wreckage of the Aurora was recovered and brought to Earth. A memorial was built, not celebrating victory but mourning necessity. The inscription read, 32 souls who sought the stars and found darkness. Their sacrifice reminded us that peace is not given but earned, not through weakness, but through strength wisely used. The Halor Empire never fully recovered its former power, but it survived and slowly changed. Their children learned of the war with shame and wonder, how a peaceful species had become their greatest enemy, and then their unexpected savior, how humans had taught them that true strength was knowing when not to use it. Years later, Vakath, now old and humbled, visited Earth. He stood before the Aurora Memorial and performed the Halor gesture of deepest respect. A human child, learning about history, asked him why he had attacked the ship. Because I was foolish, Vakath replied. I mistook gentleness for weakness. I thought power meant taking what we wanted. Your people taught us otherwise. They showed us that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemy but transforming them into friends. The child nodded, understanding in the way children do. Simple truths that adults complicate. My teacher says humans are dangerous when threatened but kind when possible. Your teacher is wise, Vakath said. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest weapon is not their ships or their tactics. It's their choice. The choice to be peaceful when they could be conquerors. The choice to build when they could destroy. The choice to forgive when they could revenge. The Halor Empire had struck a human ship and paid the ultimate price. Not destruction, but transformation. Not death, but the death of their ignorance. They had awakened humanity's warriors only to discover that humans' greatest victory was turning warriors back into builders. The galaxy was forever changed. Not through conquest, but through example. The humans had shown that peace was not the absence of the ability to wage war, but the wisdom to know when not to. And that sometimes the ultimate price of attacking humanity was being forced to become better than you were. The Aurora's crew had died as explorers. Their legacy lived on as teachers. They had shown the galaxy that humans would fight when forced but preferred to build, that they would destroy when necessary but preferred to create, that they would wage war with terrible efficiency but would rather wage peace with endless patience. The Halor Empire had struck a human ship. In return, humanity had struck at the very heart of what the Halor were and transformed them into something better. It was, perhaps, humanity's greatest victory. Not counted in ships destroyed or battles won, but in an enemy transformed into a friend, a threat transformed into an ally, a galaxy transformed from a battlefield into a community. The ultimate price had been paid, not by the Halor alone, but by humanity as well. The price of showing that true strength was not in the ability to destroy but in the choice to build. The price of proving that evolution's greatest achievement was not the perfect warrior, but the species wise enough to choose peace. And in the vast darkness between stars, where the aurora had died, space itself seemed quieter, as if the universe itself had learned that when humans said they came in peace, it was not weakness but a warning, a promise that they could be humanity's greatest friends or discover why Earth's children had once been their own worst enemy and survived to choose differently.